That don't smell like dirty clothes.
What do you mean? I'm about to show you. This been sitting in there for months and months and months and months and months.
You got to open that up all the way. What is that?
Huh?
What is that?
Dirty thing?
No. Pull it out. What the Get the in! Put your hands up!
So this woman drives around with 2 dead kids in her trunk for over a year and nobody knows. Nobody reports them missing, nobody checks on them. These children just disappear from the face of the earth, and this psychopath is cruising around Baltimore like nothing happened. Let me tell you about Nicole Michelle Johnson, because this case is going to mess with your head in ways you can't even imagine. This isn't just about murder. This is about how 2 innocent little kids fell through every crack in the system and ended up forgotten in the trunk of their aunt's car while she went about her daily life like some kind of monster. So Nicole is 33 years old, living in Baltimore County, Maryland. She's got this sister named Deshelle who lives all the way over in Dayton, Ohio. Now, Deshelle, she's got 2 little kids, 7-year-old Joshlyn Marie James Johnson and 5-year-old Larry Darnell O'Neil III. These are just babies, you know? Little kids who should be playing with toys, going to school, having normal childhoods. But here's where everything starts to go wrong. Back in July 2019, Deshelle is struggling. I don't know all the details of her situation, but whatever's going on in her life, she feels like she can't properly take care of her kids. Maybe she's dealing with financial problems, mental health issues, maybe addiction. The court documents don't spell it all out, but she makes a decision that probably haunts her every single day. She's gonna send Joshlyn and Larry to live with their aunt Nicole in Baltimore. Now, this kind of thing happens in families all the time, right? Sometimes parents go through rough patches and relatives step in to help out. It's supposed to be temporary, just until mom gets back on her feet and can provide a stable home for her children. That's exactly what Deshelle is thinking when she makes arrangements for Nicole to take the kids. So in July 2019, little Joshlyn and Larry leave Ohio and head to Maryland to live with Aunt Nicole. They're probably scared, confused about why they're leaving their mom, but kids are resilient. They're probably thinking this is just a temporary thing, that they'll be back with mommy soon. But here's where the story gets really dark really fast. Nicole Johnson is not the caring, responsible aunt that Deshelle thought she was sending her kids to. This woman has serious problems that nobody in the family apparently knew about or understood the severity of. The exact details of what happened to these kids are still murky, because Nicole's version of events keeps changing, and dead children can't tell their story. But what we know for sure is absolutely horrifying. According to what Nicole eventually told police, little Larry, the 5-year-old boy, died in May 2020. May 2020. Think about that for a second. This is right in the middle of the COVID pandemic, when everybody's locked down, when kids aren't in school, when social workers aren't doing regular checkups, the perfect time for a child to disappear without anyone noticing. Nicole claims that Larry got sick and died, and instead of calling 911, instead of rushing him to a hospital, instead of literally doing anything that a normal human being would do when a child is dying, she just let him die. And then, and this is where it gets even more insane, she put his little body in the trunk of her car. But wait, it gets worse. According to Nicole's own statements to police, she then drove around with this dead 5-year-old in her trunk for over a year. Over a year. She went to the grocery store with a dead child in her trunk. She went to work with a dead child in her trunk. She probably went on dates, visited friends, lived her entire life with Larry's decomposing body just a few feet behind her. And nobody knew. Nobody asked where Larry was. Nobody reported him missing, as little boy just vanished from the world and nobody cared enough to notice. But Larry's death was just the beginning of this nightmare. Because if you think that's as bad as this story gets, you're wrong. 7-year-old Joshlyn was still alive at this point. She's living with her aunt, probably wondering where her little brother went, probably scared and confused and traumatized. And Nicole is supposed to be taking care of her, protecting her, being the responsible adult in this situation. Instead, she's driving around with her nephew's corpse in the trunk while pretending to take care of her niece. Can you even imagine the psychological torture this poor little girl must have been going through? Living with someone who she probably suspected had done something terrible to her brother, but being too young and powerless to do anything about it. And then, sometime later, the exact date isn't clear from the court documents, Joshlyn died too. Again, Nicole claims it was from illness, but come on. What are the odds that two healthy children both just happen to die of natural causes while in the care of the same person, especially when that person's response to the first death was to stuff the body in a trunk instead of calling for help? So now Nicole has two dead children, two little kids who trusted her, who were supposed to be safe in her care, who probably called her auntie and hugged her goodnight. And her solution? Throw Joshlyn's body in the trunk with Larry's and just keep on living her life like nothing happened. Think about the level of evil, the complete lack of human empathy that it takes to do something like that. These weren't strangers, these were her own family members, children who shared her blood, who called her aunt, who probably loved her despite whatever she was putting them through. But Nicole Johnson didn't see them as human beings deserving of love and care. She saw them as problems to be disposed of. And disposed of she did in the most callous, horrific way imaginable. For months and months, Nicole drives around Baltimore County with two dead children decomposing in her trunk. The smell must have been absolutely unbearable, especially in the hot Maryland summers. The neighbors probably complained about weird odors coming from her car, but somehow she managed to keep this grotesque secret hidden from the world. Meanwhile, back in Ohio, Joshlyn is wondering about her kids. She tries to contact Nicole to check on Joshlyn and Larry, but Nicole keeps making excuses. Oh, they're fine, they're playing, they're sleeping right now, they're at school. Always some reason why she can't talk to them directly. According to court documents, Joshlyn eventually made arrangements to take the children back. She was ready to have them come home, ready to be their mother again. But every time she'd try to coordinate the return of her kids, Nicole would flake out or make excuses or just stop responding altogether. And Joshlyn, probably thinking that Nicole was just being difficult or that family drama was getting in the way, didn't push hard enough. She didn't call the police, she didn't drive to Baltimore to check on her children in person. She trusted that her sister would eventually do the right thing. But her children were already dead, had been dead for months. And Nicole was just stringing her along, buying time, hoping that somehow this nightmare situation would just resolve itself. This is one of the most heartbreaking aspects of this case. These children died and nobody knew them. Nobody missed them. Nobody was checking on their welfare. They fell through every crack in every system that's supposed to protect kids. They weren't enrolled in school in Baltimore, so no teachers noticed they were missing. They weren't receiving medical care, so no doctors were keeping track of them. Child Protective Services wasn't involved because there had been no reports of abuse or neglect. These kids just existed in this weird limbo where they were invisible to all the institutions that might have saved them. And this is where the COVID pandemic made everything worse. In 2020, when Larry died, schools were closed, social services were reduced, people were isolated. It was the perfect time for children to disappear without anyone noticing. The systems that might have caught this earlier were all disrupted by the pandemic.
But eventually, all secrets come out. And Nicole's secret comes out in the most mundane way possible. A routine traffic stop. On July 28, 2021, Nicole is driving around Essex, Maryland, which is in Baltimore County. She's in her car, the same car that contains the decomposing remains of two children, when she gets pulled over by Baltimore County Police. Now, this isn't some dramatic high-speed chase or anything like that. This is just a regular traffic stop, the kind of thing that happens to people every day. Nicole's car is unregistered, uninsured, and she's driving with a fake temporary license plate from West Virginia. Plus, she doesn't even have a driver's license. The police officers who pull her over are just planning to write some tickets and impound the car. Standard procedure for someone driving illegally. They're not looking for dead bodies or investigating a murder. they're just doing routine police work. But then Nicole starts acting weird. And when I say weird, I mean she starts making comments that immediately raise red flags for the officers. The exact details of what she said vary depending on which court documents you read, but the general theme is that she starts talking about death and dead bodies. She makes some comment about there being something dead in her car. At first, the officers probably think she's talking about like a dead animal or something, maybe roadkill she hit and didn't clean off her car. But something about her demeanor, something about the way she's acting, makes them suspicious. So they decide to take a closer look at her vehicle. And that's when they smell it. The unmistakable odor of decomposition coming from the trunk of Nicole's car. Now the officers know they're dealing with something serious. They ask Nicole to open the trunk and she complies. And what they find inside is going to haunt these cops for the rest of their lives. There's a clear plastic bag, and it's filled with what can only be described as the
That don't smell like dirty clothes.
What do you mean? I'm about to show you. They been sitting in there for months and months and months and months and months.
You got to open that up all the way. What is that?
Huh?
What is that?
Dirty things?
No. Pull it out. What the f? Get the f***ing in! Put your hands up! Turn over! Turn over! Turn over right now! You want the rest? Don't you move! Don't you move!
Listen, I need you to calm down. I need you to calm down. I'm trying. No, I need you to focus. Listen, calm down. I need you to focus. Focus in, focus on her. Hey, I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Good instinct. Okay. Okay. I need you to breathe. Okay. I'm good. I need you.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
It's a dead baby in that bag.
What? Hey, you come back. It looks like a kid that's curled up in there.
I don't want to look, right?
Nope. Just wait.
Hold up for a minute. Something just happened there.
They're not okay.
Ain't not okay. I wasn't okay. That's why I took off.
remains of a human being. The bag is full of maggots and the smell is overwhelming. One of the children, little Joshlyn, has been reduced to basically skeletal remains after more than a year in that trunk. But that's not all. During a more thorough search of the vehicle, officers find a second container, a black and yellow plastic tote, and inside that container are the remains of Larry, the 5-year-old boy who had been dead the longest. Can you imagine being one of those police officers? You pull someone over for a routine traffic violation and end up discovering 2 dead children? These are seasoned law enforcement professionals, people who have seen terrible things in their careers, and even they were traumatized by what they found in Nicole Johnson's trunk. The officers immediately secure the scene and call for backup. This has gone from a simple traffic stop to a major homicide investigation in a matter of minutes. Crime scene technicians are called in, the medical examiner is notified, and Nicole is placed under arrest. And Nicole? When confronted with the evidence of her crimes, she doesn't deny it. She doesn't claim innocence or make up some elaborate story about how this isn't what it looks like. She basically admits that, yes, these are her niece and nephew, and yes, they've been dead in her trunk for months. But here's where Nicole tries to cover her ass. She claims that both children died of natural causes. According to her story, they both got sick and died, and she was just too scared or too confused to call for help. She wants everyone to believe that she's just a grieving aunt who made some bad decisions, not a child killer. But come on, Even if we believed her story about them dying naturally, which is already pretty suspicious, what kind of person keeps dead bodies in their car for over a year? What kind of person drives around town, goes about their daily life with decomposing children just feet away? A psychopath, that's what kind of person. The investigation that follows reveals the full scope of this horror show. Detectives have to piece together the timeline of when these children died, and they have to try to figure out what actually happened to them. The medical examiner has to try to determine cause of death from remains that have been decomposing in a hot car trunk for months. It's a complex investigation made even more difficult by the condition of the remains and by Nicole's constantly changing story. Every time investigators talk to her, she gives them slightly different details about when the children died and how they died. Meanwhile, back in Ohio, Joshlyn is getting the phone call that every parent dreads. Police are calling to tell her that her children, the children she sent to Baltimore to be safe with her aunt, are dead, have been dead for over a year, and nobody bothered to tell her. Can you imagine that phone call? Can you imagine the guilt and horror that Joshlyn must have felt? She sent her babies to what she thought was safety, and instead, she sent them to their deaths. And for over a year, she was worrying about them, missing them, trying to get them back, not knowing that they were already gone. The investigation also reveals the complete failure of every system that was supposed to protect Joshlyn and Larry. These children were never enrolled in school in Maryland, so no one noticed when they stopped showing up. They weren't receiving regular medical care, so no doctor was keeping track of their health. Child Protective Services wasn't involved because no one had reported any concerns about their welfare. In the middle of a pandemic, with schools closed and social services disrupted, these two little kids just disappeared from the world, and nobody noticed. It's a perfect storm of institutional failure and family dysfunction that allowed Nicole Johnson to commit her crimes without detection. The charges against Nicole are serious. She's facing first-degree child abuse resulting in death for both children, plus additional charges related to improper disposal of human remains. If convicted, she could face life in prison. But even life in prison doesn't seem like enough for what she did to those kids. These weren't stranger victims. These were her own family members, children who trusted her, who called her aunt, who probably loved her despite whatever abuse she suffered at her hands. The case also raises uncomfortable questions about family dynamics and the informal custody arrangements that happen in many families. Joshlyn thought she was doing the right thing by sending her kids to live with her aunt temporarily. She probably thought Nicole would take good care of them and send them back when she was ready. But there was no formal custody arrangement, no legal oversight, no social services involvement. It was just one sister trusting another sister to do the right thing. And that trust was repaid with the murder of two innocent children. This case also highlights the vulnerability of children in informal care arrangements. When kids are placed with relatives without legal involvement, there's no system checking on their welfare. No social worker doing regular visits, no official documentation that the children even exist in their new home. Joshlyn and Larry essentially became invisible once they moved to Maryland. They existed in this legal gray area where nobody was officially responsible for their welfare except Nicole. And when Nicole decided to kill them, there was no safety net to catch them. The trial proceedings reveal even more disturbing details about Nicole's behavior during the time she was driving around with the bodies. Witnesses testify about interacting with her normally, having conversations, going about daily business, all while she had two dead children in her trunk. Think about the level of compartmentalization that requires. The ability to chat with neighbors, maybe go on dates, certainly interact with police during traffic stops, all while knowing that you're carrying around evidence of the most heinous crimes imaginable. Nicole Johnson wasn't some deranged person who snapped in a moment of rage. She was someone who made calculated decisions every day to continue hiding her crimes. Every morning she woke up and chose to keep driving around with those bodies. Every time someone got close to her car, she chose to keep her mouth shut. Every time Dashell called asking about the kids, she chose to lie. That's not mental illness or a momentary lapse of judgment. That's sustained, deliberate evil.
The forensic evidence in the case is limited due to the condition of the remains, but investigators do their best to determine what actually happened to these children. The medical examiner's reports are grim reading. They describe the various stages of decomposition and try to piece together any clues about how the children died. What's clear is that both children suffered before they died. The idea that they just peacefully passed away from natural illness is contradicted by the evidence. These kids were neglected at minimum, and quite possibly actively abused before their deaths. The psychological evaluation of Nicole reveals a woman with serious antisocial tendencies. She shows no genuine remorse for what happened to the children. Her main concern seems to be minimizing her own legal consequences, rather than expressing any grief for the victims. During interviews with investigators, Nicole displays a chilling lack of empathy. She talks about the dead children like they were inconveniences, rather than human beings. She's more upset about being caught than she is about the fact that 2 kids are dead because of her actions. This is classic psychopathic behavior, the complete inability to form emotional connections with other people or to feel genuine empathy for their suffering. Nicole saw Joshlyn and Larry not as children deserving of love and protection, but as burdens that she ultimately disposed of like garbage. The community reaction to this case is one of horror and outrage. People can't understand how someone could do this to children, especially their own family members. The idea of driving around with dead kids in your trunk for over a year is so far outside normal human behavior that it's almost incomprehensible. But it also sparks important conversations about child welfare and protection. How do we prevent cases like this from happening? How do we ensure that children in informal care arrangements are still being monitored and protected? Some experts point to the need for better systems to track children who move between states or between family members. Currently, there's no central database that would flag when a child disappears from the system. If Joshlyn and Larry had been enrolled in school in Ohio, then moved to Maryland but never enrolled there, that should have triggered some kind of investigation. Others focus on the need for better training for law enforcement and social services to recognize the signs of child abuse and neglect. The fact that Nicole was able to hide her crimes for so long suggests that there were probably warning signs that were missed or ignored. The case also highlights the importance of maintaining contact with children who are placed in informal care arrangements. Dashell's biggest mistake was not insisting on regular, direct contact with her kids. If she had demanded to video chat with them weekly or visit them in person periodically, she might have discovered that something was wrong much sooner. But it's easy to judge Dashell's decisions with hindsight. At the time, she was probably dealing with her own problems and trusting that her sister would take good care of her children. She had no reason to suspect that Nicole was capable of such evil. The legal proceedings drag on for years, as these cases typically do. Nicole's defense attorneys try various strategies to minimize her culpability. They argue that she was overwhelmed, that she panicked when the children died, that she didn't know what to do. But the prosecution paints a picture of a calculated killer who made deliberate choices every day to continue hiding her crimes. They point out that she had numerous opportunities to do the right thing, to call 911 when the children first got sick, to turn herself in after they died, to at least give them proper burials instead of letting them rot in her trunk. Instead, Nicole chose the path of deception and cover-up. She chose to lie to Dashell about the children's welfare. She chose to drive around with their bodies rather than face the consequences of her actions. She chose her own convenience over basic human decency. The trial also reveals the full extent of the physical evidence against Nicole. In addition to the remains found in her trunk, investigators found other evidence in her home and car that supported the charges against her. Text messages between Nicole and Joshlyn show the progression of lies and excuses over time. Nicole's own statements to police, given during multiple interviews, also provide damning evidence against her. While she tries to portray herself as a victim of circumstances, her words reveal someone who made conscious choices to harm these children and then cover up their deaths. The victim impact statements from Joshlyn and other family members are heartbreaking. They talk about the children they lost, bright, loving kids who deserve so much better than what they got. They describe the pain of not knowing for over a year that their loved ones were dead, of being lied to and manipulated by someone they trusted. The ripple effects of Nicole's crimes extend far beyond just the immediate family. The police officers who discovered the bodies needed counseling to deal with the trauma of what they saw. The medical examiner and crime scene technicians who processed the remains were affected by the horror of the case. Even the judge and jury members who had to sit through the trial testimony were impacted by the graphic details of what happened to these children. Cases like this take a toll on everyone involved in the justice system. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of this case is how preventable it was. If any one of several systems had worked properly, Joshlyn and Larry might still be alive today. If there had been better oversight of informal custody arrangements, if there had been regular wellness checks, if someone had reported concerns about the children's welfare, any of these interventions might have saved their lives. Instead, 2 innocent kids died horrific deaths at the hands of someone who was supposed to protect them. They died alone, scared, and probably wondering where their mother was and why no one was coming to save them. Nicole Johnson's eventual sentencing brings some measure of justice, but it can't bring back the children she killed. She was sentenced to life in prison, suspended all but 50 years, after pleading guilty to 2 counts of child abuse resulting in death. It means she'll spend the rest of her productive adult life behind bars, which is appropriate given the magnitude of her crimes. But for Joshlyn and the rest of the family, no amount of prison time can make up for the loss of Joshlyn and Larry. No sentence can erase the guilt and pain of knowing that they trusted the wrong person with the most precious things in their lives. This case serves as a stark reminder that evil can exist anywhere, even within families. It shows how children can fall through the cracks of systems that are supposed to protect them. And it demonstrates the lasting trauma that one person's crimes can inflict on entire communities. The story of Nicole Johnson and the children she murdered will be remembered as one of the most disturbing cases in Baltimore County's history. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of informal custody arrangements and the importance of maintaining contact and oversight with vulnerable children. But most of all, it's a reminder that Joshlyn Marie James Johnson and Larry Darnell III were real people, real children with hopes and dreams and futures that were cut short by someone who should have loved and protected them. They deserved so much better than the horrific end they received, and their memories deserve to live on as more than just victims in a criminal case. They were 7 and 5 years old when they died. They should have grown up, gone to school, made friends, fallen in love, had families of their own. Instead, they became statistics in a case file, evidence in a courtroom, and ultimately a warning about what happens when systems fail and evil goes unchecked. The case of Nicole Johnson and the children she killed will continue to be studied by criminologists, social workers, and child welfare experts for years to come. It represents a perfect storm of institutional failure, family dysfunction, and individual evil that resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent children. But beyond the academic analysis and legal proceedings, this case is fundamentally about the value of human life and the responsibility we all have to protect the most vulnerable among us. It's about the children who have no voice and no power, and the adults who are supposed to use their voices and power to keep them safe. Nicole failed in that responsibility in the most catastrophic way possible. She took 2 lives that were entrusted to her care and snuffed them out, then spent over a year driving around with their remains like they were nothing more than garbage to be disposed of when convenient. For that,
She deserves every year of the prison sentence she received, and the rest of us deserve to remember Joshlyn and Larry not just as victims, but as children who mattered, who were loved, and who should still be alive today if not for one woman's unfathomable capacity for evil.